In our last video, we went through and used dimensions to be able to make a square. We're going to do the same thing in this video, but do it in a different way by using constraints. And again, constraints are just rules on lines that allow you to go through and control their actions, behaviors, how they look, feel, whatever you need them to do. There's lots of different constraints and ways to control lines inside of Inventor. So we're going to start off with a part. As normal, we're going to go up to 2D Sketch, and then we're going to choose XY plane, which is also our front view. From there, I'm going to make the world's most perfect square. I'm going to go to my line tool, and I'm going to start off by making a beautiful square. So if we know anything about squares, there's a couple basic rules we have with squares themselves. First off is that all the sides are equal. We have 90-degree corners, we have a vertical and a horizontal line. And right now, my 4 lines is all I really have that makes a square. So we have to go through and add constraints to this to control where these lines are at. We could try to grab one of these points and move it around, but in all honesty, we're not going to get something that's accurate and precise with that. We want it to be perfect. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through and add on constraints to do this. Now, if you take a look at the top ribbon, you'll see constraint area. And inside of there are 12 different constraints that we have options of using. There's all kinds of different ones, and we're going to talk about a few of them here. We'll talk about more later in future tutorials. But basically, we're going to go through and we're going to look and see what's available to us. And when we kind of hover over them, it will show us what they mean if we're not sure. So equal means equal. They're going to all be equal lengths. So I'm going to highlight the equal constraint, and you'll notice that my mouse now has an equal symbol underneath of it. All the constraints we click on will match whatever we have there. So I want to say I want this line equal to this line. Now they'll be the exact same lengths as each other. I want to then set this line equal to this one, and then finally this one equal to that one. Now, all of my lines are totally set up as the same length, but my problem is I still don't have a square. I still need to do some other things to be able to set that up. To do that, I have a couple of options. I can set things perpendicular to each other, which means that the angle is going to change to 90 degrees. I can set lines as horizontal, which is going to allow me to set them to be horizontal, or I can set them as vertical, which will again allow me to set them to be vertical. To start off with, I'm going to use my perpendicular constraint because I know squares have 90-degree angles on all the inside corners. So I'm going to click on 1 and 2, and now I have 90-degree corners here. Because of how I set this up, all of these are going to be 90 degrees. And if I try to set a constraint on something that already exists, it's going to give me an error. So I'm just going to hit cancel on there because it already knows that that has to be 90 degrees based on that all of the lengths are the exact same. So the last thing I really need to do here is I need to set one of these to be vertical or horizontal. I'm going to click on my vertical constraint. I'm going to set this line as being vertical. And now you notice that square immediately went into being exactly what I want it to be. It should look and feel exactly like a square, and it does. I have one last problem here. If I hit escape and get out of my constraint mode, I still am able to change this, but you notice that it stays a square. So no matter how big or small I make this thing stays square. The last thing I need to do is I need to add a dimension. If you notice down in the bottom right hand corner, it says I only need one dimension. And that's because I set all of the sides equal to each other. So I need to give one side a dimension, and it automatically knows that all of them are going to be the same exact dimension. So I'm going to go to my dimension tool. I'll click on my vertical line. I'll move it over, and I say I want that one to be a 1/2 inch. I can either type in 0.5, or Inventor's actually a calculator, so you can do 1 divided by 2 and hit enter, and it will set it as a 1/2 inch. Once I'm done, I'll finish my sketch. I'll go through and extrude it at a 1/2 inch. And now I have the world's most perfect cube that started from nothing. Hopefully that helps. If you have questions, leave them in the comments. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next video.